We need to start now shaping the future. It means supporting our Democratic nominee in New York City's mayoral race, Zohran Mamdani. Yet, many Democratic members of the Senate and House representing New York have stayed on the sidelines. That kind of spineless politics is what people are sick of. They need to get behind him and get behind him now.
Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland has proven himself to be one of the few lawmakers willing to call out the wimpiness of the Democratic Party. And he has done so yet again in a new interview with the Washington Post. So the video that we just watched, that was from the Polk County Steak Fry in Iowa earlier this month. I would have liked to have gone to that. There he took direct shots at Democratic leadership for refusing to endorse New York City mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani, which he argues will blunt momentum for Democrats in the 2026 midterms. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and his team were deeply offended by Chris Van Hollen calling them out for their spinelessness, go figure. Justin Chermel, one of his spokesmen, responded at the time saying this. He said, Leader Hakeem Jeffries will have more to say about the general election well in advance of November 4th. Meanwhile, confused New Yorkers are asking themselves the question, Chris Van who? That's not helpful at all, okay? But the backlash from leadership has not dissuaded Van Hollen from continuing to criticize them. In this recent interview with the Post, the senator complained that his party has been too slow to the fight, too cautious, too timid. He has ignored some pollsters who urged Democrats to focus relentlessly on politically safe kitchen table issues like inflation, while sidestepping trickier ones like illegal immigration. So for example, Van Hollen is the senator who went to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador after he was wrongly deported by the Trump administration. So you might remember him from that. And Trump called Van Hollen a grandstander at the time. And some Democrats worried about defending an immigrant accused of gang ties. But when somebody asks you about a fundamental core issue like due process, the answer can't be, well, let's talk about the price of groceries instead, Van Hollen said. This job is not worth it if you constantly have to be putting your finger to the wind. So he also talked about Democrats' overall unwillingness to speak out about what is going on in Gaza. So he said this about his colleagues. He said, I think people were just, for whatever reason, scared about speaking out. I think AIPAC is a big part of that. And you know what? I also feel as though AIPAC is a big part of that. And we're gonna have a story about that even later on in the show. So it most definitely is about AIPAC. And for his willingness to challenge Israel, he himself has become a target of AIPAC-funded attack ads and smear campaigns. And we know in the past how successful these smear campaigns can be as far as getting people out of their seats in Congress. Finally, Van Hollen also is urging Democrats to tackle powerful special interest groups. Here he is again at the Iowa Steak Fry.
I believe we, the Democratic Party, we've drifted. Too often we have come under the sway of powerful moneyed interests at the expense of working people. And we've become a party that too often trims its sails, too cautious, too rudderless, too attached to poll-washed and pundit-rinsed and donor-dried messages. What comes out of the wash is all bleached and blow-dried. We also need to stop deluding ourselves that the problem is all about messaging or volume or style. We don't just need to fight, we need to fight for something. We must be ready, as FDR was, to directly take on powerful special interests, whether they be big oil, big pharma, big tech, big AI, big banks, Wall Street, or other powerful interests who are calling too many of the shots in Washington.
In the interview with the Post, he decried the party's failure to close a controversial tax loophole that benefits private equity when they were in power. To counter the Republicans' massive tax cut package, he plans to introduce a bill that would levy a surtax on people making more than $1 million a year. That tax, which would be incrementally phased in, would pay for permanent tax relief for the working class. While people like Chuck Schumer are dismissing concerns about the Democratic Party, Van Hollen's state sentiments are echoed by the actual American people, and polls show that. Polls show that the party's favorability is at a 30-year low, and that is, it's unacceptable. It's appalling, but I mean, it's not really surprising, I guess, and it's true. You have the people like Chuck Schumer. You also have people like Kamala Harris. I don't know if you guys caught the interview she just did with Rachel Maddow. She has a book out now where she's discussing everything that went on her very short-lived campaign trail in 2024. And she already, it's almost like, why are you doing this? Why are you out here? And in that interview with Rachel Maddow, she refused to endorse Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York City. She made it seem as though, oh, there's other stories going on in the country. Zohran is not the biggest story. She didn't endorse him. All she would say is that I support the Democrat. Just why, right? We know why, like that's a rhetorical question, but she would not do that. And then she tried to divert the conversation away from Zohran to like some other candidate people that nobody has really heard of. But either way, nothing that is such a big story what's going on in New York City. That is one of the biggest cities in the world, not just in this country, first of all. So it has international appeal, and we have a progressive young brown person who is like winning, and he's beating all these establishment Democrats. We have two establishment Democrats in there, and he is beating both of them. And he is also very vocally not some. I don't want to say he's anti-Israel, but he's not kowtowing to Israel the way the other candidates are, especially Eric Adams. I don't know if you guys saw, but he was dressed in full garb it was like decorated with, he had the Star of David all over him. It was very, very extra. And then also, before I get to you guys, we also have people like Ezra Klein, who is, he has been a big voice in the journalistic community for the left, but he has been. He's not exactly a progressive, let's say. He's not exactly a leftist. And now he is actively attempting to push the party, the Democratic Party, even further to the right, saying that, you know what, maybe the Democrats should start running more pro-life candidates, pro-life Democrats. We're gonna run as candidates because you know what? Maybe that's just not a fight that we can win right now as a Democratic Party. Very easy for him as a man, by the way, to say, just maybe we can sacrifice some of the women's rights for the sake of winning an election. He also had an article that he put out, I believe it was in the New York Times, where he was saying that Charlie Kirk did politics the right way by encouraging debate and all these things. So it was a very strange article. And then we have people like Hakeem Jeffries, who can't take any kind of criticism from a member of his own party, even though that was very, very, very valid criticism. So Sharon, what do you make of this, and how do you see the future of the Democratic Party going? Because we are seeing progressive candidates win their races whenever they are allowed to enter the races, but we see so much pushback from the older establishment Democrats who just refuse to actually progress.
Yeah, I mean, the question requires clarification. Do you mean the dictated fake future or the grassroots one? Because what's going on in New York is a metaphor for more. The mayoral candidate who is playing to huge crowds, who won the primary without really even spending money, just this enormous effort, this enormous outreach, the social media that hit and resonated, the TikToks. I mean, he gets it. And so you have Kamala Harris, who's talking about why a gay man couldn't be her running mate because she doesn't trust the American people. Look, it may or may not have been true, but it's actually stupid. You're running against this dictator reality star who's going big and nasty and evil, and you're playing it safe because of money and politics. And so they can't support this young man. They can't support Mamdani because he is about taking money out of politics. He's telling people, don't send me money. Let's just get out there and do this thing. AOC was lucky that she got a speaking role at the Democratic National Convention. I would love to go behind the scenes and see what was told to her, you better toe this line. And I'm not suggesting that she's the type that's going to capitulate, but that was the only way she was going to be able to speak. And we know what went on behind the scenes when someone just wanted to shout out support for Palestinian people and denounce the terror that's going on in Gaza. We saw what happened there. Silence, get out. So this is a fake party. And perhaps it's always been, and I sound naive, but they were fake when they anointed Hillary Clinton. It's her turn. And as much as, some people may hate to admit it, the 44th president, Barack Obama, was part of that as the leader of the party, saying, Joe, you sit out. And I'm not suggesting that was the answer, but just deciding who's going to win this thing, silencing Bernie. The whole thing is just, you're never going to survive this by just sitting on the sidelines and taking money. But that's what they're going to continue to do. One other thing, Hakeem Jeffries and the stupid mean letter that they sent to the president, he didn't even read it, by the way. I can assure you, he didn't even read it. And today the headline is that Hakeem Jeffries is saying, don't you think it's strange? In all the 10 years, he's never met the president. So you're not actually the minority leader, Nancy Pelosi is. But don't you think it's weird that he's never mentioned my name? What are you talking about? What are you doing for the people? And what are you doing to energize people? Or are you keeping people like David Hogg out of leadership positions? Because that's what it seems like.
So, really my entire life, all 33 years I've been here, I got here when Bill Clinton became president. And really all through that time, the Democratic establishment at large hasn't really had to change or challenge their branding, and they haven't much had to change or challenge their approach up until really Donald Trump came into office, and then everything became about being anti-Trump, about Trump's bad, we're better, and that has been the strategy to win elections gone ever since then. Now, it is historic, it is traditional that the opposing party or the party not in power typically takes back the House. And as I stated in the last story, Democrats have been overperforming in the polls, especially in recent special elections. But that's not strong enough to have any type of sustainability. Now, the good thing about Mamdani winning in New York is it shows that we are at a time where progressives, in fact, do have much more of a likelihood and an opportunity to take the reins within the Democratic Party. We have an opportunity to get a lot better candidates elected. One of the reasons being that so many of these people Nancy Pelosi's running again. She's 84, I believe. And all of these people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they rode a sugar high, that new Democrat, Bill Clinton wave, and they were popular. But now their way of doing things just isn't on top of the fact that they're literally they're like 90 years old. So I think that there's a lot of reason for us to be hopeful and for us to take advantage of the fact that if Mamdani can not just win, but win handily in New York, then I think that we can have a lot more of that going into the midterms and beyond.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it almost feels like, why are we even listening to people like Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and even Hakeem Jeffries anymore? Like, just push them out, just if we can just get our people in, then we wouldn't have to worry about them anymore. And the reality is that there is going to be some turnover that's going to have to naturally occur at some point. And I think at that point, we are going to be looking at a very, very different Democratic Party going forward. The only thing is, on the progressive side of the Democratic Party, we do get a little bit impatient because the nature of being a progressive is looking ahead. So we've already been talking about these things that the rest of the country is only now starting to even consider, let alone embrace. We've been talking about these things for years, right? We've been trying to tell people there's a better way, you deserve these things, blah, 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 healthcare, UBI, whatever. And these are only only now, entering into these mainstream conversations. But the Democratic Party, which is supposed to be the liberal party, they're getting more conservative, first of all. And then the Republican Party, which is supposed to be conservative, they're getting just like flat out regressive, right? They're just going back, not even like a few decades, they're going back to the 1940s, it seems like, with some of the things that they're trying to implement, if not further back, as we've seen, sometimes even to the 1800s. So it is very stressful. Hopefully this is just a thing where like over time it'll play out and it will naturally remedy itself. But in the meantime, we still have to deal with people like Kamala Harris, like even Obama, and now Ezra Klein, very disappointing. Maybe not surprising again from him, but just stop.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.